We're just hours away from the biggest SRC election at the University of Pretoria. Tomorrow, you will get to cast your vote and have your say in terms of who you would like to represent you as the student body. Good afternoon, I'm your host, Thrive25, and welcome to the SRC election for the meatiest part of the debate, the biggest part of this SRC election, or arguably the biggest part of the SRC election for the portfolio SRC President. And this is powered by the Elections Management and Consulting Agency of Africa. The President holds a very pivotal role here at the University of Pretoria in terms of student governance. As the leader of the SRC, the President represents the entire student body in all official matters, acting as the primary spokesperson and liaison between students and the university administration. This is a very big role, and we have a very big debate. Allow me to introduce our candidates. Furthest from me, we have Samkelo Mjali. Next to him, we have Gift Zulu. Next to Gift Zulu, we have Michaela Wathen. Next to Michaela, we have Mosa Mutlause. Next to Mosa, we have Jonas Ndlovu. And next to Jonas, we have Kutso Manyaka. Thank you all for taking time to join us in this debate. I hope it's going to be a very engaging one, to say the very least. A few ground rules, just so that we're all comfortable and we know how this whole process works. Please ensure that you're respectful at all times. I doubt I need to say it. We're all presidential candidates, so I'm assuming respect is at the top of the list, and as no discrimination will be tolerated throughout the debate. A question will be posed to each and every one of you, of which you'll be given the opportunity to answer the question, and then your candidates can then rebut what you have to say, of which you can just signal with a hand, and then we know to pass the mic to you once the candidate answering the question has finished, of which then you will have an opportunity to rebut, and then, we can then move on to the next question. For time reasons, please try to be as concise as possible, just to ensure that we all have an opportunity to speak. And let's try our best not to interrupt one another when speaking, as we'll all be given the opportunity to speak as well. It all seems self-explanatory, right? We're ready? Cool. This is exciting. I'm very, very excited. I see, Michaela, you're holding the mic, so we're going to start with you. The South African higher education sector is currently at a crossroad, facing challenges such as funding, being one of them, declining quality concerns, and calls for greater social impact. As the SRC President, how will you articulate a compelling vision for the University of Pretoria student body that directly addresses these national realities? And what concrete steps would you take to drive systematic change within the university?
Thank you so much for the question. So I think I'm going to first start off by saying what that vision would look like, or sort of in a phrase, what would I say it is? And I think it's about cultivating creation and the idea of building in capacity for sustenance within the University of Pretoria. The reality is we're at a place in higher education where the government is really struggling to support universities at a national level. And I think something that we can really do internally as a university is look at how do we shape institutional structures, how do we shape the projects that we're currently running and what the university currently does so that it better serves students in a commercial way, for example, to address financing issues. So for example, the Mamelodi campus, how do we repurpose that to ensure that, for example, food can be grown there so that the prices in tax rates can be reduced because the cost regarding that has gone down. Or for example, we're very research intensive. So why don't we translate that research into application by, for example, I'm working on a project currently with timber construction, which basically has the benefits of building construction, like large buildings, mass buildings, at a quicker rate. And to solve accommodation issues, for example, why don't we apply that research in addressing those sorts of issues? So it's, in my opinion, about looking at what we have and what we do with what we have.
Samkelo, I see you nodding quite a bit. Do you agree with everything that Michaela is saying, or do you think that a lot more needs to be done in addressing some of these societal issues that we outlined a bit earlier on?
Hi, thanks for the question. In the main, I do agree with Michaela. If I do say so myself, I think notifying and realizing that the entire system, particularly NSFAS being an issue, is something that is external from the university. And us as SRC presidential candidates, and hopefully president at some point, we only have jurisdiction really over our own institution. So using that jurisdiction, it's about how can we make the system work for the students rather than against the students. It's about relying on the resources that we do have and finding a way to use them to our advantage. And perhaps that's why you see me nodding a lot, because I do agree with a lot of what she's put forward.
Gift, I see you have your hand up. Do you have something to counter what Samkelo's saying?
No, thank you for the question, and I hear your points, both of you. And as far as it is an external issue from the university, but I think what we need to look at, it's the SRC itself. Why should the SRC be governed by an institution? Why can't the SRC govern itself alongside with the other SRCs in other institutions? So we should be seeking to establishing policies or a policy that SRC serves the students, not the management. And the SRC should be it should be student-centered, not management-centered. Yes, that's my case.
Yeah, so you seem to have your hand up. You also want to weigh in on this conversation?
No, thank you very much. I would just like to touch base or rather add on what Gift has already highlighted. So I believe the important thing in this thing is going to be SRC having autonomy, which means SRC must be very much independent. So SRC must not rather rely on the university support system that are already there to assist students. So as the SRC, we must have our own mechanisms or the system that when students are reaching to us saying, we are hungry, we don't have funding, we need a space, we need accommodation. What do we do? Because we keep referring students to the same systems that failed them. Right now we have a UP financial assistance, whereby our students must go there, those who are unfunded, and apply for those UP assistance. But then we still find the university sitting on over millions or close to a billion historical debt. So this means that this system somehow are not effective or are not just reaching all our student populace. So as SRC, we must have our own means of saying, how do we independently fundraise? How do we solve the issue of student hunger without relying on the management? Thank you.
I'm going to let you pass the mic on to Gift. Jonas, do you have something to say?
No.
Yeah, okay. Gift, your thoughts?
To add on that, I feel like the focus is more economic, and we forget the relationship between economic and social responsiveness. People are really affected by this thing. It does a lot of harm psychologically and mentally, you understand? So I believe if we have an SRC that governs itself, that is independent, no student that meets the requirements to be enrolled in an institution should be excluded. And for me, if I become the president, I'll be very much unapologetic when it comes to that. And every student should have access to education. It shouldn't only be the case of NSFAS students. NSFAS criteria on its own is classist. The reason why I'm saying that, there are students that are self-funded, and their parents, they pay a lot of tax. But why are they not funded? And there are students who also, they can't afford to pay their own money, stuff like this. Guys, I'm sorry, I'm Zulu. So NSFAS itself needs to be fixed. And in order for us to do that, we need to unite as students. One of the most important things as president is to preach unity, like nobody has ever done before. We need to unite, forget about whatever agendas you might have, and unite. The societies that we have, we need to utilize them in order to make a difference. It shouldn't be for us, it shouldn't be for your CV. So, yeah, that's one.
I'm going to ask you to pass the mic to Mosa, just to close us off on this topic before we move on to the next one. Mosa?
Thank you so much. I think we are deviating from the question, in which is how can the South African higher education sector, that is facing crisis of funding and declining social quality and impact. So per my manifesto on Friday, I spoke about ensuring that no academically deserving student is excluded because of fees, that we will demand an acknowledgement of debt agreements and the use of the university reserves to settle historic student debt. The university can be sitting on billions of rands, sitting on its reserves and not helping the students. And to make this also a more practical solution to a practical problem, as my PEMA manifesto on Friday, I spoke about, ensuring that the campus economy belongs to the students by creating more jobs on campus, more jobs on campus, as well as business opportunities, and using as well the university reserves to subsidize food, transport, and accommodation. Because you can't be having club steak that is 40 rands or sheba that is 8 rands, costing more than the initial price of pap. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you to move the mic to Kudzo. Something that Gift mentioned was unity, right? And the SRC president has this responsibility to ensure that they present a unified front, that being the SRC. That is something that we've seen problems with over the past couple of years with, current SRCs, previous SRCs as well, in the sense that we've seen an ununified SRC front. How would you, as the SRC president, ensure that there's unity within the SRC body?
No, thank you very much for the question. I believe as the SRC, we must be connected by the whole strategic goals of the SRC. We must first understand the need of our students before our own personal needs. We must understand why are we there by the SRC, what is the needs of our students, and how together in our own strength and in our own weaknesses, we can contribute differently to those needs. So I believe we must emphasize that this is about students, and then this is not about us as the members, because we cannot always get along, but then we have to consider the impact that we are making if ourselves as the SRC members we are not united, because at the end of the day it means that we are not going to rather produce to the utmost maximum of our student success. So yeah, I believe we must be guided by the whole strategic a success of the SRC. What do we need? Our whole strategic goals. We must first outline what do we need to achieve, and then that must guide us through the whole thing. Thank you.
Jonas, you seem to have something you want to add. You've heard strategy from Kudzo, something that is needed within the SRC body that the SRC president will be implementing. Do you think that that is sufficient to allow for cohesion within the SRC body?
I'm not sure if I comprehended what he was saying, but it's basically to say unity is paramount to the functionality and ultimately success of the representative to the student representative body, highest student representative body on campus. But for me, look, we don't have to like each other. We don't have to subscribe to each other's ideologies. What matters at the end of the day is whether or not we deliver the results on which we got into office. Whatever that was on my campaign ticket should be what I operate on whenever I'm in office. But just maybe, sorry to take you back a little bit, on the matters of separating between governance and administration. And a lot of colleagues here were emphasizing that the SRC in most part is a governance body and not an administrative body. And they seem to express the fact that, they seem to express a sentiment that they feel with the SRC is more management controlled than responsive to the needs of the students. Well, I wouldn't want to weigh in on that, but I do think that there's a lot that the ANC should be working on, should they alleviate themselves from a lot of administrative activities. Well, unfortunately, the current system that we do have in place is that of referring operative and administrative requirements to administrative bodies and units and departments within the university. But I think what most SRCs are missing during their terms in office is their role in shaping policy that is responsive to student needs. Again, in order for an administrative body to execute activities, they would have to get that from councils or boards. Those boards and councils design policy. Then policy is then executed by administrative bodies. And I think So far, I'm not sure if our SRCs have been so successful in designing policy that will culminate in solutions that we desire to see on the lives of students on a daily basis. And I think it's one of the things that will have to be highly considered. But in terms of creating unity within the SRC, look, without causing a lot of problems for other people in the public, but I do strongly believe that if you do not perform within a position where you've been appointed, you should be able to relinquish that position and allow for somebody else who is better to assume position and see if they are doing better or not. Then we can see if you are the problem or the position itself and its responsibilities are problematic. But if somebody fails to execute their duties, regardless of ideologies and political lineages, they should be able to relinquish that space and allow for somebody who can do much, much better. So unity for me would be allowing students to take people into questioning so that those people can account. Those people can firstly be transparent and then account to the students of the university. The students can decide themselves, and those people, if failing, they should be removed from there. Somebody else assume the position.
Seems like Michaela has a lot on her mind. She's been deep in thought while Jonas was speaking. Michaela, let us in.
So I echo a lot of the sentiments Kutso shared about the concept of strategy and a strategic vision, and how overall that is an important guiding framework for an SRC. And essentially, it's the thing that channels all of your efforts. If at the beginning of the year an SRC sits down and says, listen, these are our top priorities. These are how we're going to go about executing those priorities. And what Jonas is saying is incredibly true. How are we going to execute those priorities on an institutional level, but also through strategic projects so that we have both long-term and interim solutions? I think that speaks a lot to creating unity. And I think for the most part, all the presidential candidates, whether you're affiliated or not, I don't think we have many discrepancies between what the issues are that students are facing. I think the challenge of unity comes in how do we address those challenges. And I think it's incredibly important for an SRC to maintain a balance between doing active things, whether that's being on the ground, whether that is creating a project or an initiative, and doing the policy thing. Because the reality is the initiative and the project that you do on the ground, if it's not instilled in an existing mechanism or an existing system within the university, when that SRC leaves, so does that initiative, unless the next SRC has, the chutzpah to say, I'm going to take it up and I'm going to continue it forward. But if you embed those things in policy, then by nature, they follow through. And then they continue to serve students long after the SRC that put them into place has done so.
I'm going to ask you to pass the mic to Gift. Gift, you've heard what your fellow candidates have said. Strategies need to be put in place. Members of the SRC that don't do their jobs, they need to relinquish their positions. Are these viable solutions to actually addressing the problem of unity?
Yeah, well, they are. It's just that with Michaela being part of the SRC, I have a question, because you were speaking about leading the students. You understand? I understand. You currently you have academics, but the president is still amongst the SRC, as much as it is the one that is supposed to facilitate and govern the entire SRC. But what measures did you take to make the president account for only having one student forum? Because this year you have only had one student forum. And how can we reach to a point of unity if we are not engaging enough with the students? So it's very complicated or hard for me to understand that as SRC members, you come here and you are running for president, whereas you did not hold your president accountable for not taking the students serious. So the perspective of unity being projected by you guys, it's somehow confusing, you understand? And yeah, because as much as you are not the president, but you're still a leader. You understand? And if something is not being done effectively and someone is not engaging, whether it's the secretary or the deputy secretary, you have to speak up, and you expect the president to act according to everyone. Thank
Gift,
you.
I'm going to ask you to pass the mic to Samkelo, and then Samkelo, we're going to pass it back to Michaela to respond to what Gift has
I
just
can
said.
give it straight to her to respond if you'd like.
No, it's fine. You can start, and then we'll move
Okay.
straight to Michaela and then to Jonas.
I just wanted to address, perhaps going back to your initial question as to what we would do as SRC presidents. I do share a lot of the sentiment that I agree with both Michaela and Kutso that strategy is important. Drawing up an action plan at the beginning of the term is important. Understanding what our goals, what our initiative is, what is it that we're seeking to achieve is very important. But I think in response to your question, it's what are we going to do about that? So often we've seen every single SRC comes in and does that. They draw up the action plan, they have the action plan, but then how about the implementation? How do you keep the unity as the term continues to go on? I think that's what your question's asking. And for me, I think it comes down to a question of open dialogue. Because at the start, you see it throughout every leadership structure, every society. At the start, everyone's happy. They all want to get involved. It seems it's cool now, we have titles. But then as the term continues to go on, the dialogue falls apart and the unity falls apart. So I think as SRC presidents, that's what we need to ensure. Actually having those conversations, understanding where each individual's mindset's at, where their action plan's at. Are we actually coming along with what we had initially spoke about in January, now that it's June? So I think that for me, that would be something that's very important, because the open dialogue, not just amongst ourselves and the unity that we have with each other, but also amongst students and the unity that we're trying to foster with them.
Michaela?
Okay, so in response to Gift, I think it's interesting because I think your question is sort of speaking to sort of how do we as an SRC and the student body sort of unify in a structure that leads the student body and the students who we're supposed to be representing if there isn't sufficient engagement with them in things like student forums. Like, I think that's what you're posing, the question you're posing. And you're also posing the concept of, as members who are currently serving on the SRC, how is it that we maintain a level of accountability for one another? Right, in ensuring that that dialogue does happen, as Sam mentioned, which essentially allows for that unified basis. And so what I can say is that, and I agree with you in the sense that I think SRCs just in general need to do a greater job of, I don't know what the word is, it's, you know, like the concept of like my brother, my sister's keeper, you know, to say that, AO, DSG, we were supposed to have a student forum, what's happening? Oh, FSS, we were supposed to have some sort of initiative to address the safety concerns of campus. What's going on? And I think ultimately it is the president's main priority to ensure that everyone is functioning as they should be, right? But I do agree that there is a responsibility amongst SRC members to hold each other accountable. And I think the thing that comes from, however, is the president creating or setting that precedent. And I think that's something that when you go into office, when a president steps in to say, listen, I understand we have different ways we might want to do things, we have different ways we might approach things, but at the end of the day, we're all here to serve students. So I'm not here to fight with you, I need you to serve students the right way. And so I am going to give you a bit of a slap on the wrist when you said you're going to do X, Y, Z, but you didn't do it. You know, that sort of thing. Just to add on the dialogue conversation, I think in spaces and in pockets within the SRC, we have been able to cultivate unity and dialogue in order to ensure that there is student representation or the concerns of students being gathered from a specific point and then escalated so that in our larger management and institutional spaces that is happening. So I'm speaking from the perspective of being academics. We serve or we chair the sub-council, the academic sub-council. And it's been a very fruitful year. The faculty houses feel they can come to us with many issues. There's many concerns coming from the top down that we've shielded them from having to deal with. So I think in that sense, there's pockets and spaces, for example, residences, where that gets done really well. And I think what the SRC can perhaps take and learn from holistically, and as a presidential candidate who served in the academic space, I can take from that and say, when I am president, I'm going to look at how this space is run and how this space has been able to be a place where we co-create in terms of having conversation, having dialogue, so that ultimately students are represented and they are unified in the interests that are being forwarded, because it's not just people sitting in an office saying this is what students want, but they're actually engaging with them.
I'm going to let Jonas finish off this topic. Jonas, briefly, you've heard what your candidates have had to say. Do you think that the solutions that they're opposing actively address this issue of the lack of unity that often exists within the SRC body?
Look, I'm not one to judge whether or not they do address the challenges, but we can only observe these in action, and then we go through a process of elimination to say this works, this doesn't work. Trial and error is what I believe in. But to go to Makeba's question, what have you done? I'm assuming you did vote for a president last year, and that president probably didn't win. But what have you done? But this is not maybe specifically to you, but to the student populace. What have we done? What are we doing currently to hold to account our current SRC? This is not a TSC. You see, last year people could have excuses to say, "Oh, I didn't vote for them. Nobody voted for them." Dun. But what are we currently doing as students to hold accountable? You see, I cannot hold anybody account. I cannot expect Michaela to hold any of her colleagues accountable if myself, I'm not willing to go there and hold them accountable. It means I'm saying, Michaela, yeah, go ahead, burn your bridges and walk right into them. What am I doing? Like, if I do not hold Michaela to account, she probably wouldn't even want to escalate that accountability to the president as well. Look, UP has an open door policy. I would like to believe that if you go to the office of the head of student governance now and ask him about who has resigned, who has replaced those people who have resigned in their positions, what is the current structure of the SRC, he probably would be more than willing to give you those questions. But the problem now is, why should information be kept in emails and people's heads? As the SRC, wouldn't the SRC push a policy of information centralization other than Instagram? There's quite a huge thing in UP whereby we've made Instagram the center of information dissemination, which is quite disturbing in my opinion. But we'll see. But why does information have to be kept as closed as possible until somebody comes and inquire? Maybe those are the questions we should be asking ourselves. But more than that, as students, what are we doing? There's unfortunately a quarter of student population that chooses to vote. But for those who do vote, what are we doing? Are we just doing the voting because we find the emails and we have to do it? I don't know, but it's quite a disturbing trend.
Unfortunately, we are short for time. I'm going to ask you to pass the mic to Mosa. Student protests are a big thing, especially here at the University of Pretoria. We had a student protest most recently with the current SRC deciding to stage a boycott of a UP event. Now, student protests, student activism, these are powerful tools for advocating for change. How would you, as the SRC president, balance the right to protest with the need to maintain a conducive learning environment for students?
Thank you for that question. And as well with the boycott, I don't know whether it was a boycott or not, but to answer the question, to be honest, student activism, it's in our DNA. You look at the Fees Must Fall, where students, were protesting. You look at the Kwekwe case, where, students were also protesting, supporting Kwekwe. History shows us that for transformation to happen, there needs to be a sense of activism. There needs to be a sense of students coming together, not being partisan, or whether you belong to any political party. No, that's not important. We are here for the one goal and one aim. So in my understanding, I believe that in my leadership, I will be able to balance protest with academic stability in 3 ways. This is also per my manifesto as well, that we're going to ensure that protests are principled and issue-driven. We don't protest just to become disruptive and disrupt the functioning of the university. We need to be strategic and principled in how we protest. Number 2, we're going to combine constructive negotiation with management and external stakeholders with mass mobilization for students to come. Even though it's not an issue that we are facing as a student, but a burden of one student must also be your burden as well. And thirdly, we're going to communicate openly with students so that they can understand the purpose of why are we protesting and why is it important to can protest. For instance, in terms of students who cannot receive their academic records because of historic debts. In 2019, the minister released a communication to say students must receive their academic records even though they are owing. So we're going to tabulate such conversations to management, number 1. Number 2, we're going to tell management as well, use the reserves. That's important because it's money sitting and not doing anything. Yeah, thank you.
I'd like you to pass the mic to Gift, and then Gift, you'll pass it to Samgelo once you're done. Gift, you've just heard what Mosa has had to say in terms of, student activism, student protests, and how that must not infringe on students' right to learn. What's your take on what he has to say?
I agree to some extent, but I think mentioning fees must fall. There's a different kind of in UP specifically, I think we should focus on UP. Let's not broaden the term. I think at UP we still need to teach and conscientize more students what is activism, you understand? So with my idea is to have a purpose-driven protest. Ne? So the first step is before the protest itself, I'll engage actively with the management, gather a report, demographics, statistics of what is happening with the students. Then during the protest itself, invite the students, tell them the purpose, and ensure that it's peaceful. And the last thing, after everything has been done, after we've protested and what's so not, if I have a meeting with the management, why should it be in closed doors? It's the same thing with this process of presenting yourself as a candidate of SRC. When you are writing your manifesto, you're supposed to go present it. When we are here now doing a debate, but when you are elected now and you are signing documents, why should it be in closed doors? So things need to be more transparent to ensure that that level of it's more approach in that way. Yeah, that's my take.
And briefly, Samgelo, you've heard what your fellow candidates have had to say regarding this topic. What's your take on that? And then we'll get to you, Kuzo.
No, I'm actually glad that both of them did bring up the fees must fall issue. And I think that it's important that we realize the right of assembly is something that is constitutionally enshrined. It is a right that we do have, and it's a right that I do encourage people to practice. And just like all rights, however, it's important that we acknowledge that in practicing that right, it can still be limited. And especially where such a right can infringe on others' rights, such as their right to fair and equal education. And that's why, as the SRC president, if I were to be elected, my focus would be mediation and negotiation before we even reach the stage of protests. And this sort of thing has been shown to work. I mean, even in 2023, I believe it was, we saw that UCT and their management, the SRC and the management down there were having issues, and they were at a standstill regarding the fee blocks and the fundraising, so on and so forth. And it was only when they decided to call in an external mediator to come and mediate the situation did they arrive at a solution. Did they then see that the two parties could work together to establish a fundraising committee that would benefit the students, to establish a system where they make sure that resources are available to students during assessments. And I'm not opposed to protesting at all. As I said, I think the Soweto uprising of 1976, this is why we're here. If it wasn't for it, we wouldn't even be sitting in this room. And I think that there's a way of going about in the sense that maybe if the SRC, we look at having our own internal procedures whereby we say, let us first negotiate and mediate with the management. Should management not be willing to then hear us, we'll move on to our next internal procedure, which is a nice, peaceful, for lack of better words, but peaceful protest. And I believe our current SRC president did that this year, where she walked around the whole of campus, peaceful protest, and it didn't disrupt any education. And that's what we should be aiming to achieve. So, yeah.
I'm going to allow you to pass the mic to Kuzo briefly. Kuzo, you've heard what your fellow candidates have had to say. Also want to probe you on something. There's this perception that the SRC president is a head girl or a head boy of an institution. Whether that's positive or negative, I mean, that's open to interpretation. But that's led to a certain perception of this portfolio, specifically by students, that this is not necessarily someone that they can go to for their concerns. Instead, they're just seen as a prefect for the university. Is this something that you plan to counter or plan to be a part of if you become the SRC president?
No, thank you very much. I believe, just to touch base on what our colleagues has already highlighted on the issue of protest, I want to first clear the confusion of saying a protest is not a disorder or disruption, but then this must be taken as the highest democratic practice, whereby if ever some doors are closed, there's nothing that we have to do, but then we have to meet on the streets. But then while I believe that a protest is an effective tool sometimes to stir the change, I believe it cannot always be used as to say this is the first tool, but then it must be a last resort. So in the revolution, we learn about the 3 stages of war that tells us to say we must first engage. When there's a certain issue, as the SRC through the office of MMC and secretary, we must tell the student populace to say, hi students, we are aware of this issue. This is what it's happening, and then as the SRC, we are with you. Then the second step is going to be negotiate. That's when now we are telling students to say, we are going to meet the management or the stakeholders or whatever that it will be the people that matter must be addressed to say we are going to demand the answers for you, and then we are going to get back. So shall we go negotiate and speak to those people, but then nothing progressive comes out? That's when now we go to the last step, whereby we are saying we mobilize. When we mobilize, we call all our student bodies, constituency, or the student or the mass student that we are representing to say, hi students, this is what's happening, and then we're going to need your support. Then we occupy. Then occupy is when now we're going to say, let's meet on the street. But then this must be peaceful and rather also powerful. So just to touch on how are we going to balance this thing, not to interfere with the student learning success. So in order for us to have protest while having a conductive learning, we must first check to say, we must first exhaust all the peaceful channels. Try to speak, try to negotiate, try to find answers from management. Then after this, that's when now we're going to say there's nothing that we can do. While trying to protect the students' rights of saying they have a right to learn, we still have to protect their rights of saying they have a right to dignity. They must not be exploited. So that's when now we're going to say, let's come to the streets. So one other thing, I believe you spoke about the president being a head girl or being a head boy, depending on the nature of that case. So the first thing in this thing, I believe we must say the SRC must not first be a formal. So students must be able to approach us on in the streets. So when the students see me in the bus, they must tell me about their issue. We must not have that formal relationship between our students and the SRC. It must not be that gap of saying, no, it's president or no, it's the SRC, because they are that beautiful or handsome in that blizzard. So we must be very much approachable. And then in the thing of saying students having to label as prefects, I believe that now comes also back to the issue of saying the SRC does not have autonomy. The SRC cannot deliver by itself to the students' issues. So as the SRC currently, if ever we have to outline some certain student issues, even though we have the solution to solve them, we still have to pass through management and saying, hi, management, I want to do this thing for our students. Then what's that? That now takes us back to the student to say, no, we are just a referral or kind of being the consultants of the management. But then SRC are not were initially meant to be the people who fight for the students' success, the students who voted for them. When students reach, you have to do something immediately. So this is something that is not currently happening. When students reach to me, I cannot offer something immediately now on the spot. I have to go to rely or take them back to that systems that failed them. So this to the students, it makes me feel like, it makes the students feel like there's nothing that I can do. I'm just there sitting in the office. I'm just the consultant of the management. So that's my take on this one.
Unfortunately, we are short for time. I'm going to ask each of you to give, less than a minute, hopefully, of a parting shot for, students who are looking to vote in tomorrow's SRC election. Why should they vote for you specifically? I think we're going to start with you, Kuzo. Just under 60 seconds. Why should students vote for you in tomorrow's SRC election?
No, thank you very much. As to the student population of the University of Pretoria, this is why I think I'm the best candidate for this portfolio of presidents. So, as from my experience of serving in the students and external campus affair, I have highlighted all these issues. I was there to be able to see the gap, to say students really need to be presented more than only in that external campuses. So mine is to say, first thing, this is going to be a war against a financial exclusion. All the students must be able to study in this university. Our poverty must not exclude us to study. The second thing is going to be the SRC that is there for you, autonomous SRC that respond to the student issues directly on the spot without referring to the management. The SRC that is going to drive a transformation in this university. We have to rename all the colonial buildings that resembles or rather brings us the colonial figures like the Merensky Library. We cannot have such names that from the people who believe that black people does not have space in this education. So this is the SRC that says we are going to bring the solution to the student hungerness now without taking you to the SNAP program that keeps failing you or is not effective for you. But then this is the SRC that we are saying, you as the students, we are going to involve you to be the active catalyst of the change that you believe in. This is the president that's saying we are going to engage, we are going to deliver through your own individual need, the interest of the students, not me believing that I know what's best for you. This is not the president that's going to deliver based on the plan of action, but then meeting you on the streets, hear your concerns without not taking them to management, but then delivering them through the autonomy. Thank you very much.
Jonas, briefly, why should students vote for you in tomorrow's SRC election?
Yeah, sure. First and foremost, good afternoon. I was Tseho, the students of the University of Pretoria. It's Jonas Ndlovu here. And I would like to take a bet that I'm going to get your votes tomorrow. I just want to see how badly I'm going to lose that bet. Otherwise, I'm here for you. I'm subjecting myself to the mercy of the voter, the gods of options, of choice. Anyhow, I wouldn't say I have anything specific that I'm offering to you other than the willingness and the availability to serve to the best of my abilities. And look, if I do fail in that, just fire me. No discussions, no negotiations. Just lodge a memorandum, have certain number of students sign that referendum or memo and get me removed from office, and let's get somebody better to do the job, because all of us are capable of serving students. All of us are more than willing. All of us are willing to, most of us here have probably given their blood, sweat, and tears to the cause of students, and not because you are students, but it's because we are students as well. So in serving you, we are also working together towards achieving a higher and a greater goal that will be mutually beneficial to all of us in creating a better South Africa for all of us through the academic institutions within which we find ourselves in. And again, it's not about the noises that you make. It's not about how much you can, push people over, but it is about the impact that you have in the spaces within which you find yourself operating. I hope to serve you, and if not, I will always find other channels through which I can contribute towards the greater goal of the betterment of students of the University of Pretoria and at large South Africans. Thank you.
And Mosa, why should students vote for you in tomorrow's SRC election?
Thank you so much. Students of the University of Pretoria, my name is Musa, and I believe that the University of Pretoria is married with crisis and needs vigorous transformation. Allow me to be your voice. Allow me to be your representative. Allow me to push for an inclusive society within our campuses. Allow me to say that all religions are important. The Jewish community are important. They need also to be represented in terms of their tests and exam season. Allow me to say also the LGBTQI plus community is important. We are fighting for you. We are saying, as a SASCO deployee for the upcoming term for presidency, we are saying, allow us to work with you to become your voices on the ground, to turn paper into action, to allow us to become your Moses in this time, students of the University of Pretoria. Allow us once more again to give SRC candidates and everybody, personnels, to give dignity to the students once again. Vote for change, and we believe that we can transform this institution. Thank you.
Michaela, why should students vote for you to be SRC President in tomorrow's election?
Students of the University of Pretoria, I believe that you should vote for me to be your president, because ultimately it's about student-centeredness, and it's about student-centeredness not in just being present in an office, not just in us campaigning for our votes and things like that, but it's actually about bringing action in the highest ways possible. It's about representing you in rooms so that policy, so that the ways in which that the university makes decisions centers you, because there is no university without the student body. I would like to ask you to vote for me because I am competent, I have knowledge of the space, and I'm going to start this SRC off not from ground zero, but from where we are now and build going forward, so that ultimately students will have solutions that meet them in the long term, but also meet them in the interim and will serve them for years to come. And that we will have a SRC that works together, that is unified, so that ultimately in every space where there are issues and concerns, study aid, where there's concerns of safety, concerns of transformation, that those individuals led by me will, to the best of their ability, serve you institutionally, on the ground, and in every shape or form possible. So it starts with you, it starts with your choice, your vote. Please cast it for me. Thank you.
Gift, why should students vote for you in tomorrow's SRC election?
No, thank you for the recognition, and I would like to say thank you, leaders, for being present today here to show that you are ready to lead. I believe everyone possesses the skill to lead, and it's very much important to be the voice of the voiceless. But mine is very simple. Mine, I believe in free education, and I believe in a decolonized education system. So that's what I'll be fighting for. I'm not gonna promise anything. I am gonna, the only thing that I can promise is that I will not sleep while another student is hungry. And I will always be there to ensure that things are well functioning. And I will not only ensure that me as the president, as the president's office is functioning, but the secretary shall write those reports. The secretary shall do those student forums. The treasurer shall allocate money where needed. The study finance shall make sure that no student suffers from financial hardship. The societies shall ensure that every society, there is diversity, there is inclusivity. There is student facilities, everything shall be well functioned. And the last thing is that let us not be ignorant. Let us not vote for organizations. Let's vote for people who have tangible ideas and they have the real methodologies to make things happen for the students, not for their organization or whatsoever. If people don't find me as an ideal candidate and they believe there's someone with an idea and methodology of their own that can ensure that everything functions well, then they should do so and they should vote for them. Do not vote because of any affiliation, vote because you believe in what we present and making your lives better. Thank you.
And Samkelo, lastly, why should students vote for you in this SRC election?
Okay. I'm going to try to keep it to the 1 minute that you gave us. So, hi, students of University of Pretoria. My name is Samkelo Mchali, and I think it's pretty clear to see from everyone sitting here that each of us do have something to offer you. We all have diversified ourselves as individuals, and we've all gained certain skills. And sitting here and looking at the camera lens, which so happens to be you, all I can really offer you is my tireless effort and dedication. I'm not going to walk in here and make promises that I'll revolutionize anything and all your problems are going to disappear overnight. But what I can offer you is someone who is going to continue to be your voice every single day and every night. So all you have to worry about and all you have to think about is your studies. Someone who is going to use their skill set, everything that they have acquired over the years, from legal acumen to working in diverse groups to leading multiple teams, using all those skills that I've garnered over time in the focus of ensuring that your lives are easier and that you can merely just focus on what your parents have sent you here to do, which is studying. So that is why I believe that you should vote for me, so that we can have that dialogue. Do not just look at me as someone who maybe wears a blazer and, as one of my colleagues said, is so happens to be handsome and is this fancy thing, but look at me as someone who is one of you, a student first and foremost, and who cares about your struggles and who's experienced a lot of your struggles and who's here to listen and do the most for you. Thank you.
Samkelo, Gift, Michaela, Mosa, Jonas, and Kudzo, thank you so much for taking time to join us for this SRC debate. A reminder that these are your candidates for the position of SRC President, and you will have your opportunity to cast your vote tomorrow morning, the 20th of August, 2025.